Welcome to the Video Made Simple podcast, where we help take the mystery out of video and break through the monotony of day-to-day communication for marketers, entrepreneurs, and clients. Watch and listen to the world's best video strategists, business leaders, and communication experts to supercharge the way you sell, market, and teach.
How would the world change if you were an exceptional communicator?
You said it the way you said it because that's the way it needed to be said in the moment.
Open your mind to the potential of video.
It's all about showing rather than telling people.
The whole idea was to create bingeable content.
This guy actually made me a video. He took the time. That's probably the type of support and care I'm going to get when I'm paying these people a lot of money for their product.
And lead your business into a world of modern communication.
You don't have to spend millions of dollars Spielberg production to get an outcome.
Within 24 hours of opening that email, we could tell they are watching that full 20 minutes.
And video is the most powerful tool for convincing and converting. So we are in the driver's seat.
With practical tips that will help you become a better video marketer. This is the Video Made Simple podcast.
And this is only a measure. It can only get better. It can only get better.
Hello, video marketing professionals, and welcome to the podcast that takes the mystery out of producing videos. I'm your host, Chris Schwager. Today, our guest is David Ciccarelli, the founder and CEO of Voices.com, a company that focuses on finding the best voice talent available in the market, making sure that they get working opportunities with businesses that are in need of voice services. He's grown Voices to become the #1 marketplace for voiceovers and audio production with over 2 million registered users. A lover of music and sounds, David is also an audio engineer who can also provide great insights into management, business development, marketing, and finance. And he just is a great guy. I'm loving it. I'm loving him. So to learn more about marketing using voiceovers, here's our chat with David. I grew up like you and probably many others tinkering with, audio and video equipment. I ended up going to an audio engineering school where I learned how to record, edit, mix, and produce sound for film, radio, you name it. And when I graduated, I actually opened up a small recording studio of my own. Turns out I actually got my name in the local newspaper, kind of introducing this small studio that I had into our local community. And it was on my birthday of all days. And this is kind of where the story gets interesting. At the time, my wife, Stephanie, she was a classically trained singer. She'd sing at weddings and funerals and special events. And her mom read this article and suggested she get her singing repertoire recorded onto a CD that could be distributed to prospective clients. So through that referral, I think her mother playing Cupid, if you will, she came down to the studio and we ended up hitting it off. But because of that same article, there were other small businesses in the city that wanted a female voice to record some commercials, some phone system recordings. And I was kind of a nerd. I knew one girl in the city who I just met the other day, and that was Stephanie. And my pitch to her was, hey, you got a great singing voice. I know you've done some acting. What if you came back down to the studio, you be the voice talent and I'll be the audio engineer, and we'll split the money 50-50. So that's how we started working together, and we put up a small website that listed her as the one voice talent, and soon attracted other freelancers from across North America and eventually around the world who spoke different languages, had different accents, and concurrently there would be clients that worked at video production companies, ad agencies, and they'd visit this website and say, how do I get in touch with this person? And that was like the aha moment. We kind of just listed people a little bit ad hoc, and we're like, wow, what if we step back from the recording business ourselves and instead reinvent ourselves as this online marketplace? And that's really what Voices.com has become. It's amazing journey. And in preparation for this podcast, my team was explaining to me getting you on, and I was super pumped and just had to revisit our past 20 years in business and how we started using voiceovers, and it wasn't very easy, right? I mean, how long has Voices.com been operating?
Oh, we started in 2005,
right,
which is quite a while ago. So, I mean, literally right out of school,
opened the studio and started this online company right afterwards.
Oh, right. So it's straight to online.
Yeah. It was. And that was one of the things that was different. You know, talk about kind of the old way and new way, if you will. I mean, previously, and I think this is what you're alluding to. I mean, if you had a script or an ad or content you want produced, you'd probably work through a number of talent agencies who represented talent, and then maybe hire a casting director, the person to sit in that high chair with the golden ears and listen to actors file in person, one after another. That was just the audition, right, Chris? Then you kind of down select and then go, okay, maybe there's a callback, and you get a few more people down selected. And then finally you make your selection. Just, probably takes 2-3 weeks just to find that one person who you actually want to work with. Then you have a recording session. So there was a lot of back and forth, kind of an elongated process that, we found like we could probably condense that and digitize it, if you will, for lack of a better.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting because it was a lot of work, and for us at that time, we weren't using an agency as much. We had relationships with individual voice talent, and we didn't do the rehearsals so much. We just got in there and did it because these guys were pros, and we trusted them to spend a couple of minutes beforehand looking at pronunciation and ways things have been said and tone and all that type of stuff, and they would do that pre-preparation and then get straight in and record it, which was great, and it blew us away. And it was great to sit in the front seat and understand how proficient they are and how pro they are at their craft. But after a while of us kind of going through this business, like, it was more important. Speed became a big issue, like we didn't have all the day to sit there and rehearse and talk to voice talent. So agencies was definitely a more compelling move forward. And likewise for music, stock video, all the stuff that we as video production guys get access to now, that considerably speeds up the process. I mean, back in the day, it was CDs, and it was stuff in the post.
Which aren't searchable, right? So you're literally going through by hand, flipping through catalogs to go, oh, I wonder what that sounds like. And then pop in the CD. Nope, that's not right. And then pop in the next one. Even voice talent, profile, there wasn't kind of a concept of a profile. You'd have your demo CD or your demo reel that was shipped on CDs or reel-to-reel tapes. So that's like one of the big benefits, whether it's stock music, voiceover, video assets, they're stored in a database, which is searchable, cataloged. You never have to remember. You can create favorites lists and so forth. There's a lot of benefits to kind of take this, have this be part of the production process. And it kind of serves as that a bit of a second memory for you. Yeah.
Like for us, it's now, we've got a kind of a top 10 males, top 10 females. Mm-hmm. They get, we kind of break that down to the top 3 for our client. They get to kind of have a listen and have a choose themselves. And it comes back to us. We put their order in. They tell us what sort of tone, what's it for, and all the sort of criteria, which I think my team does. And it just goes into the timeline. It's done and dusted. It's interesting because just now with TikTok, what other applications, but certainly for one of our videos, I was able to put a caption on the screen as I was publishing the content and then have it voiced over. Now, obviously, it's not one of your voiceovers, right? But what sort of threat does that pose? Because it's, if any, I mean, it was just a more of an observation. What was interesting was it put an auditory. It was spelling things out for those that aren't readers, right? And was able to kind of narrate what the video was all about, all from just punching in a couple of words as text. Yeah, you're hitting on a hot topic for sure. I mean, we refer to this as an AI voice or a synthetic voice, and I think there's a time and a place for it. Yep. And I would characterize it this way. Yep. When content, think of it like a 2x2 matrix, where on the horizontal axis, it's time. So the shorter the time, almost as these voice interactions, it could be turn-by-turn directions, an elevator speaking to you, gate changes in an airport. So kind of almost like sound bite size. Then, and then you have the dynamic, the nature of how often the content is changing. So is this really dynamic content? Again, turn-by-turn directions, maybe there's new addresses that come up, or names of buildings, or gate changes, or train stations, platform changes. The content's changing all the time. You can't have a talent rush into the studio to re-record that. Yep. So when you have the combination of those two, for the most part, they're very industrial applications, almost like, real world applications. That's when I think this kind of AI voice or synthetic voice, might make sense. Yes. When the content, however, is longer in form,
format.
Yes.
You need to educate and inform and entertain an audience. There's a story, there's character development, there's emotion. It's the quality of these AI voices certainly is getting better. But it doesn't, what we found in some studies is that usually under 10 seconds, a lot of people actually can't discern the difference. When it's between 10 and 30, that's where there's this uneasiness of, I don't know if it's a human or a robot talking to me. It creates this anxiety, which you're actually not listening to the content. You've disengaged and you're now trying to discern what is this that's actually talking to you. And then after 30 seconds to 60 seconds and beyond, again, audio books and audio dramas and documentaries, people want to listen to people who sound like them. They want to be told a story to kind of get lost in the moment and not have these awkward kind of vocal artifacts that tend to get still generated by some of these AI voices.
So what is the future then? When do you see that those nuances will be perfected? How many years are we away? And this is a bit of an absurd question for you, because you're in the business of doing the right, doing the artistry behind it, not just, mechanics. But how far do you reckon we're away? Could it be 20 years that we're away from something that is so unbelievable?
I think it's a lot sooner than that. I mean, it's kind of a couple data points here. One, the time that it takes to create these voices used to require 60 to 80 hours to sample every single sound imaginable. And what they're doing is taking a word like project and then kind of cutting it up where you have pro for professional and ject could be used for object, reject, right? And they're stitching words together. That's why it sometimes sounds very mechanical, I think, as you said. But that used to require a lot of content, 80 hours for one, language and gender and age, right? One kind of character. Now it's kind of down to about 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
I've heard 3. Adobe claims that they can do it in 20 minutes, but, I think that's a lot of show and tell and big kind of conferences and trade show, but it's definitely getting shorter, which means that actors can actually use these engines to create a synthetic or an AI voice of themselves, like clone their own voice. So the most progressive actors actually see this as an opportunity to scale their own production, kind of work while they sleep. I mean, imagine you can hire me or you can license my voice by just typing in the text.
That's unreal.
Now, that's the nuance where I think we're going to get to is it doesn't have all of like the emotion and the inflection. And in order, the software tools that I've, either demoed or people have kind of shown me, they still require manipulation, with the software. You can't just paste in a paragraph and get out all of this emotion. It's almost like musical annotations. You're still having to kind of put emphasis on certain things, and every software tool does it differently until it's as seamless as a text editor, where everybody understands what bold is and what italics is and underlines. And there's this common way to annotate voice. I think that's actually the hurdle. Right now, there's this translation layer, but it's got to be just, don't make me think type simple. That's how easy it's got to be. That's the part I think is going to take a bit longer. But until then, I mean, we've spoken with, PhDs from MIT who are like literally working on this problem for the last 5 years. And they were saying kind of 5-10 years. I mean, it's not as long as 20. There's a famous Bill Gates quote that says, we underestimate what's going to happen in the next 5 years. We overestimate what's going to happen in 20. Meaning most things happen a lot faster than we think. Think of the last couple of years, how dramatic life has changed right before our eyes. So I think it's coming. I think it's more of a matter of when, not if. And I would say the moment, which is a little bit indiscernible, but the moment where that robotic or AI voice is indistinguishable from the human voice for a prolonged period of time, that's the singularity moment, if you will.
We'll be back in a short moment with David Ciccarelli. Is your DIY home video studio holding you back? Well, 84% of people believe the way videos are presented to their market could be better. Nowadays, video is everything, and there's a more streamlined way to present yourself professionally to your audience. It's called the DIY Video Program. The DIY Video Program is more than just a place to shoot your videos. It's a place to create course content, send personalized sales video and emails, record regular video updates for social media, and look and sound amazing in every video interaction with no production or tech skills required. Supercharge the way you sell, market, and teach with an all-in-one video program. Go to ridgefilms.com.au/DIY. Well, I think it's progressive that you approach this in that way. And we're already using, I think, control tracks, or what we call control tracks, which would be AI voices for just to get the timing of certain edits and whatever, which I think is a smart move, and then recording the proper voiceover later on. Tell me about branding. There's something that came up in my notes, and I did question it with the team, and I was like, okay, audio branding, right? So the phrase, what is it and why is it important in business?
Well, first off, I think that, it's been well documented that about a third of the world population are auditory learners. We learn best by listening. And I certainly count myself in there. I have 500 audiobooks on my iPhone that I continue to download and listen to, the same ones often over and over. And a huge fan of podcasts as well, too. So knowing that there's a cohort or a contingency of the world's population that learns best by listening, then there's an opportunity for marketers to either augment their video, where it used to be kind of all about the video, like delight with the sound afterwards, like almost design in a, mute in type experience. But, if there's sound, then that's great. What we're seeing now is a lot of advertisers in particular thinking about sound first, or at least at the same time as developing the storyboard. Now, audio branding I would define as your unique soundscape that drives home the tone and the personality of your brand. It could be a collection of sounds, maybe some kind of musical quality. It could be an embodied voice, could be maybe some synthetic vocalization, some sound effects, or kind of all of the above. Often this gets kind of boiled down to the sound logo or the audio logo. Think of the chime when you boot up Netflix, or, the musical notes when you turn on your Mac. These are sound logos, but I think the overall audio brand is almost like that entire soundscape of every time people hear your organization, whether it's the phone or maybe an in-store experience, there's almost this familiarity of, yes, I called the right place. Yes, I'm in the right place. That is developed over time. So it started with the jingle and kind of like improving recall, but I think it's now being used in new ways, either as new, frankly, audio channels emerge, creating opportunities for marketers. So hopefully that kind of provided, not too much of an academic definition, but starting to get kind of the sense of what we're trying to, communicate, of the importance of taking sound maybe as seriously as the video component.
So I was watching Wolf of Wall Street for about the 50th time the other day, and so much of that era was about audio selling, really. It was all over the phone. And I was explaining to someone the other day just this transformation really over the last 3 years in particular. But how much audio selling for me, like getting on the phone and trying to sell someone without them visually seeing me, how poorly that works. I hate it. I think things get misinterpreted. I don't think we're tuned in like the Wolf of Wall Street days. And the ability to have all these body language nuances now in the video side of things, like all of our inquiries are video meetings for 15 minutes. That's pretty much how we start. So, maybe we're fluffing around a bit more. Maybe, things in our business certainly take a bit longer to sell. People need to touch and feel and be a part of it. But the visual element is such a big deal, right? So what's the question? I don't have a real strong question here, but I'm just probably looking at maybe what the threat is potentially to what you were saying earlier with regards to audio. Is there a threat in video that audio may not be, or at least voice artists may not be as vital as they once were? Video's always been the star of every show, right? Audio has certainly played the supporting role. I'd argue, though, that, in a lot of ways, marketers have just saturated the eyes, and now they're moving on to the ears. How do we find some untapped channel? And so marketers are kind of looking at, hey, maybe audio represents a way to tell the story in a deeper format, a longer, more meaningful way. It's not the 15-second reel or the 6-second TikTok video. It's the 20-minute podcast. It's the 30-minute, interview back and forth, where both sides, it's more of a conversation, and you actually end up starting to feel like you get to know somebody vicariously, even though you've never met them. I'm sure we have all this. It's a long-standing phenomenon where people watch the news and they feel like the news host is actually a friend of theirs. It happens in business as well too, where you kind of tune in at a certain time and you get to have this sense of familiarity. So I actually think audio can do that because it just requires more time to almost develop that, virtual relationship, if you will. But there's these audio only experiences where I think that many of us experienced, certainly during the pandemic, of just feeling screen fatigue. I still want to learn, I still want to listen, but I don't always want to be necessarily looking at video over a long period of time. Yes. There's a number of podcasts that I listen to that have a video component. It's actually all done on camera, but I only, for some reason, listen to the audio version, which I appreciate, why your show has actually both as well too. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people that are like that, 20, 30 minutes. It's actually, been, again, documented as the ideal length because it's the average commute in a lot of metropolitan areas. It's the average length of walking a dog. And it's the prescribed dose of a daily dose of exercise. So, when you ask people kind of what they're listening to, and maybe I do these kind of cold spot checks in our neighborhood when I see, friendly faces who I know well enough, I'm like, oh, what are you listening to today? And I hear like, oh, this health podcast, or this, a meditation sometimes that they're listening to, or I'm listening to a story. The number of adults that listen to stories to fall asleep at night is amazing. I mean, people are looking to be entertained in primarily in ways with screen, but then there's these other moments during the day where it's okay that people still want to have some kind of some experience, some sensory stimulation, if you will, or winding down, yet not by the all-consuming video screen. Doing so just with maybe some earbuds and winding down at the end of the day. That's exactly how I listen to my podcast first thing in the morning, mostly. I've got a whole range of different styles of podcasts. Predominantly checking my own, obviously, because I want to make sure my team's actually fulfilling the requirements and there's no errors in my podcast. But it was Gary Vee that probably got me thinking about this transfer of information and how important audio is going to be in the long term, and how you're right, like people can consume you while they're driving the car. They don't need to visually see you. And it's funny, I believed that for a long time, and that's why we invested. We've gone 2 years now on this podcast, 100 episodes, by the way. And I was giving you the shout out and the congratulations in the pre-production prep. I said, that's quite the milestone you've reached. 100 of anything, that's an effort. Yeah, well, look, to be honest, it's all team. I think if I was trying to trudge through this and do it every week, it would never have continued. And so many, I think, people try their podcasting and do 6 episodes and go, oh my God, I got better things to do, And I've had people recommendations, whether it's a good idea in their marketing, maybe alongside their video marketing. And it's like, It's too early, it's still too early. People have said that it's done amazing things, and others just like it's crickets, and you've got to understand what the goal is and the intent is in the first place. So I went on that journey, right? And I've gone on that journey, and I'm happy to continue on that journey. But then it was one of my clients that said, I listened to one of your earlier lives, because we started the podcast as a live recording, and kind of, we just wanted to like hit stop, dust our hands of it and walk away, and it was already on, as a podcast. Over time we realized we just needed some more production around this and greater value, and making sure that we, had some preparation in there. So that's kind of how it was engineered. But one of my earlier clients got on one of these lives and actually had a comment, and I didn't realize this until years later. He said, "Oh, that was really good that day. That was a great thing. It was cool, and it certainly got him tuned into the possibilities of video." But the key thing that he said was, "I don't sit and watch Netflix. I don't watch free-to-air TV anymore. I watch YouTube videos." And I sit down, because, we've got our 75-inch TV. It's all plugged into YouTube, and you can sit there and be entertained, whether that's being through education style content or whatever else is on YouTube. But your whole wind down period could be sitting and watching this show. And so it got me really thinking, because we've neglected our YouTube channel just for so many years. And so I was like, all right, we're already recording like 10 cameras. Why aren't we transferring this in its pretty much native format to YouTube? And so we've started that process. And when I've looked at it, I've felt the same way. I was like, okay, well, there's a lot going on. There's some good information here delivered, and it's not just a two-shot locked off and, listening and not much to look at. There's stuff dancing around all the time, and so it's kind of visually appealing. But is it important that companies think about how they're diversifying their delivery, not just, it's a 15-minute tutorial video for YouTube, but they are thinking about audio, they are thinking about podcasts, they are thinking about long form, short form content, and spreading it as wide as they can go.
Creating voices. I met with a marketing consultant who gave me a really important lesson as well, which was, whatever your marketing mix is going to be, pick 1 or 2 channels and just own it.
Yeah.
Just own those, know everything there is to know about it. And as you brought up, video and a podcast, that might be right for some businesses who go into it knowing, can you do 100 episodes? Do you love meeting new people? Are you comfortable with the sound of your own voice? I mean, these are the type of things that immediately would turn someone off. Someone else might be a prolific writer, and they're the overused term, but the thought leader or the expert or the opinion holder in their company, and they can write, and that's how they do it. Some people might be public speakers. However you're getting that message out there, find the format that's right for you.
Yes.
Now, if you have certain content that might be, maybe more suited as evergreen content, I think that's where a video makes a lot of sense. You're teaching your customers product explainer videos, product tutorial videos. I define the difference, between an explainer is almost more salesy, promotional. I'm teaching somebody about a new idea, whereas product tutorials are kind of walking you through step by step, click by click. And in both of those situations, it doesn't need to be the CEO or the founder who's doing the voiceover. I think that might make sense, where you want to, maybe you can even try, a male voice for one style, female for another. If it's animated, you might even want to consider having it translated and dubbed in another language as well, too. Kind of one of the benefits of animation. But, I would leave with this, and the takeaway on this particular point is, likewise, I kind of caution just jumping into the new shiny marketing channel, social media channel, or, endeavor, whatever it is, just because it's there.
Yes.
If it doesn't align with your work style and how you're already communicating as a small, medium-sized business, I think you'll struggle with it and you'll feel like it's a chore.
Yeah.
Those who love doing podcasts, you're going to go, great, we got a new guest on the show, or I can't wait for tonight's episode or today's episode. That's the enthusiasm you want to bring so that you can stick with it over the long haul.
Yeah, and I think something like TikTok is overwhelming for a lot of people, and it's not so much about conforming to the platform, but being you and let the platform take you where it needs to take you. And I think a lot of people, and ourselves included, are trying to engineer something because it's like TikTok worthy. It's like, no, it's bullshit.
Yes.
That should just be, we should just be transferring our information. We don't know if it's going to work or not, and scattering ourselves to this other new platform accordingly. And there was a couple of LinkedIn experts that I listened to talking about, put it all in on 90% into one or two platforms, as you said. Then the remaining 10, just be there. Do you know what I mean? Because for the odd one-off chance that somebody is prolific on Instagram, for instance, then they'll still be getting their healthy dose, and a penny may drop for them one day.
And a lot of people who become Insta famous actually really struggle with taking that audience off of that platform and creating your own on your own website, your own domain, where you can then complement it with email marketing and video and blogging and get SEO in there. Like there's, having landing pages where you can run ads now. So that I think becomes a struggle with building up a business solely on a social platform. You are kind of limited and have the constraints. Sometimes they're creative constraints, don't get me wrong, but you're somewhat limited to the features and functionality of that and how you engage your audience there. So, I view social as more of an extension of kind of, if you will, the primary platform for us, which is voices.com, and all these others. We have a phrase that all links lead to voices. So that's one of the things that we're trying to create is like inbound links, either they're social links or they're news and media, or it's a quick mention at the bottom of a video. It's great that the interaction happens offline, but ultimately we want to create a customer on voices.com. So that's how I think about it in terms of the broader network.
Yeah, great. And so you mentioned earlier talking about CEOs and their appeal in, I guess, video and audio. Do you think that hiring a voice artist instead of letting a CEO speak in projects like, for us, a very common project is company profile video, lessens the credibility of a video?
Well, I think if there's a time and a place, right, for the CEO or maybe another executive, a leader in the organization to lend their voice. In my experience, it's best when it's kind of, they're a true spokesperson, like an announcement, being on a podcast, hosting a webinar, something live, right? Maybe giving a speech to the entire team. That's when the CEO or an executive works out not only just fine, that's kind of ideal. It's frankly almost expected. It's when it's, an advertisement. I mean, there's very few instances that I can recall where the voice on an advertisement was the founder of the organization. Aside from, was it Dave Thomas from Wendy's hamburgers, like years ago, he used to do all of his own. There's a few instances, but they're very, few and far between. So I think in those situations where it's promotional in nature, again, I think a lot of CEOs don't want to come off as feeling salesy either. So that's again why maybe an actor is getting into character in and of themselves. And my best advice for that is, how do I know how to pick a great voiceover? People like to buy from people who sound like them. So all you have to do is ask yourself, who is it that I'm trying to reach? Who is that audience? And then almost like creating a character sketch of what they look like, what they sound like, how they speak. And that's really ends up being the artistic direction for the archetype that you want to have representative of your brand. Your brand is like a reflection of the people you're trying to reach. And therefore that should in turn be, almost like the personification of your brand or your customers. And that's really what you're going to try to capture with the voice actor is speaking to people in a way that they want to be spoken to, using their language. And I'm talking, even if it is jargon, even if there's kind of colloquialisms, whatever it is, that your audience is going to go, these people, this brand gets me, this organization gets me, we're speaking the same language.
David, this episode has been really insightful. I've loved the kind of breadth of where we've taken this. And audio is often overlooked. Is visuals more important than audio?
I think that's a tough one, but certainly they both have their place. Each can stand alone, but they can also work better when they're together. You can have a video only experience and audio only experience like we talked about. But I think the best means of communication is when audio and video are working seamlessly together.
Beautiful, beautifully said. And if you want to learn more about David, about audio marketing, or anything to do with voice.com, then please have a look in the show notes and we'll leave all David's details in there. David, thank you so much for being part of the show. I think you've brought a great broad breadth of expertise around audio, the world of audio versus video. So thank you so much for having us on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Video is everything, but without audio, you're back to reading. Having a clear audio and voice track is the easiest way to communicate with your market. Thanks for tuning in. That's all for this episode of the Video Made Simple podcast, and see you next week.